Good Monday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk in the Monday Market Monitor. We are live in Charlottesville, across Crozet, the Commonwealth, the country, and the world, on the I Love CVille Network. We're presented by Yes Realty Partners. We're presented by Ally Property Management, Charlottesville Settlement Company, Charlottesville.
Closure title.
Closure
title and settlement and interstate service company.
That's
and
right.
From what I understand, we're going to have the Wells in here next Monday, and I'm looking forward to that.
Mr. Wells and his son Greg confirmed for Monday, guys. That'll be a good show, but that's a week from now. Today, a good friend of this program, a man that is a steward of the community, college football fan, an entrepreneur, a father, a husband, a dude I'd like to have a beer with, just a good dude, Greg Slater in the house. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure.
Yeah, so Monday morning monitor is, we kind of talk about what happened in the last 7 days, and then we kind of bring in experts and we talk a little bit about some micro markets, and just a little week over week is usually how I start the show off. We're starting to see pendings increase substantially over actives, which is not helping the inventory market that we've constantly talked about needing it. But one of the things we're going to dovetail into our conversation a little bit later is, you're an expert in new construction, and we'll talk about what's happening and coming down the pike. But hey, do me a favor, kick off 2 weekends of the Parade of Homes. How did it go? How did your builders do? Good turnout?
It went very well. So I was sitting in Old Trail in a custom home by Vermonte Homes, and the first weekend we saw I want to say about 90 groups across 2 days, 40 on Saturday, 50 on Sunday. Now then the rains came on. The weather on Saturday wasn't great, and there was a UVA home football game. That was probably the lightest day. And yesterday was super active. I was running crazy all afternoon talking to people, and the quality of the traffic was good, right? There, you get some people who are looking at ideas for remodeling, or maybe they live in the neighborhood and just want to see what's going on. But we had a lot of good conversations with people who are considering new construction because they're so challenged by the lack of inventory.
And that's kind of the topic we want to talk a little bit about today. Back in the day when I was used to doing the parade, these 2 weekends, I'd sell out my whole year. I mean, it used to be nonstop, so I was glad to hear that the traffic is picking back up.
Well, we have two inventory problems, and the reason why I don't think some of the custom builders are slowing down a little bit is we've got people who want a building that can't find the lot to build it on.
Yep.
Or the budget's starting to get challenged.
Or the builder says, I can't touch it until 2023.
There's a lot of that going on. We should definitely talk about the challenges in that regard. A lot of headwinds.
So there's about 3 people who do not know who you are. We probably ought to let you tell folks who you are and what firm you're with and what you do for a living.
Sure. My name's Greg Slater. I got into this business in 1996. I've been licensed since 1997. I've worked for multiple home builders, multiple real estate companies. I've been a managing broker. After the recession, I decided to just go straight sales. About half of what I do is representing a custom builder and a production builder, and otherwise I help everyday buyers and sellers. I'm a big fan of the industry. I spent 11 years on the board of directors. I was president of CAR in 2010, and I continue to stay very involved in the operation of our association.
Good dude. Crozet Creamery, Hokie fan.
Husband. I graduated from Virginia Tech and moved to Whoville, and I say I'm a Hokie that loves Whoville.
Yeah.
I also tell people after living here for over 25 years, I have more friends that are Wahoos than Hokies.
How do you feel about that?
That occurred with my hands. Organic. It's great. The older you get, the easier the rivalry becomes.
Yeah, of course.
We lost over the weekend, and I was done with it an hour later. When I was Jerry's age, it might have ruined the whole weekend.
You know what? I say this all the time to people. I would love if Virginia Tech and UVA were undefeated at the end of the year.
Oh,
and then they play in the Commonwealth Cup, and it makes it that much more fun.
It would be great. It would be great for sure. I have been to, other than the pandemic year that ruined the streak, since 1988, I'd been to that game in person every year.
Wow.
Home or away.
So Greg Slater, guys, is Mr. Crozet.
And thank you. That's where I wanted to go with it. So, but let's get a little micro. Let's talk about Old Trail, right?
Sure.
You know Old Trail pretty much like the back of your hand. Let's just talk a little bit, for those who don't really familiar with Old Trail, get a little bit of how the history of it, how it became, where it's at now, and where you think it's going as far as the project is concerned.
Sure. So I try to help people understand Old Trail as first within Crozet, a small town, but also within the context of Old Trail, a small town with different neighborhoods within Old Trail, right? Because there's such a variety of lot sizes and home types and rental and multi-generational. But Old Trail was developed, they combined several farms back in the early 2000s, and it was developed, I think they broke ground in 2004. It's probably most famous for the Ark being built there and Evan Almighty. Whenever I stand in certain parts of the community and tell Old Trail, I'm like, there's the Evan Almighty view, because you see it over and over in the movie. But it originally started with the phases past the pool in the back half of the community. What a lot of people don't realize, the back half of Old Trail was developed as what we refer to as by right. They didn't have to rezone it. That created the quarter-acre lots of Lower Ballard Field, the half-acre lots of Creekside, and the half-acre lots of Upper Ballard. So basically from the pool back. And what was interesting about Old Trail is the developer did something you don't really see anymore, and they just opened up lot sales to the general public. It wasn't builder-controlled.
And when it first started.
When it first started. And so that took us all the way. And
know that.
honestly, this is what caused the V recovery of Old Trail after the recession. It was the fastest place to bounce back and take off. And what you had people buying lots as investments. And so and during the recession, they started dumping them. So lots that people bought for $200 to $225 in Creekside, we got to come out of the recession building on, they were dumping them for $150,000, $160,000. Can you imagine getting a half-acre lot in Creekside for $150,000?
Today?
That was happening in 2000 and 2011.
Wow.
And we just achieved some incredible price points. Fast forward to the rezoning, originally Old Trail was going to be over 2,000 homes. It has a commercial component. It has a lot of open space. There's a county park within the context of Old Trail. There is an assisted living facility that's been built. They're actually building a medical office building in front of it now. And during the pandemic, a 190-unit apartment complex opened in.
Right in the middle of it.
Right in the middle of it. So
Much needed apartment complex.
yeah. But over time, the master plan, the work on the land use and the master plan, we realized the density that was allowed, which was going to be over 2,000 units, was too much, and the market was rejecting some of that level of density. So it was reworked, and it was, I don't know how many times in the history of communities in this area we've downzoned a property after it was started, but they cut it.
Did they downzone or they just reduced the density?
I use those words interchangeably.
Yeah, well, there's a difference, but yeah.
They reduced the density and the limit that they had to achieve as a minimum. So they're going to end up being closer to 1,000 to 1,200 homes.
Well, that's an interesting fact, because most folks may not know that, right? Because it was closer to 2,200-ish, 2,300 allowed units, and it's below 2,000 now? Is that what you think?
Yeah, it's below 1,500.
Below 1,500?
Yeah, it's closer to 1,200, I
Really?
think. And it gets a little
So
complicated.
that's almost half.
Yeah, the math gets complicated because they count, there's apartments over the
Sure.
town center.
Sure.
BMC owns a small apartment building, office space.
Sure.
But yeah, we're closer to, we're probably, you can't put a timeline on development anymore because the pace of sales impacts it, but now the pace of the ability to create lots impacts it. And we can talk about that as one of the headwinds.
That question just came in. Kevin Higgins, dwindling local inventory, no lots to buy. How does a builder in this business pivot its model?
Well,
Thank you, Kevin Higgins.
they're making sales. There are probably 50 sales that have happened this year in the MLS that the buyers are just waiting for the lot to be ready so they can start a home. So they're basically 50 or 60 sales on unplatted lots. And so the buyer's ready, the builder's ready to apply for a permit, and they're just waiting for the plat to get recorded and get through the process. And North Point is a prime example. There's
Is
easily
that Capshaw?
The developer?
no.
No, yeah, East.
Yeah, it's Great Eastern.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes.
Great Eastern, yeah. But
David Mitchell.
we had thank you for organizing it. You organized Frank Bailiff from Southern Development to give a presentation to our team. And, I pride myself on knowing what's coming up. But there was a couple of things he shared. They're pretty much, at North Point, he says this first phase, he's sold out already.
And they can't start a home.
He was sharing with me, go back to the red tape and green tape, which knocked me off my socks. It's 3 to 4 months now in Albemarle County to get a building permit.
Yes.
That's not the rezoning, that's not the site plan. They've got roads ready, infrastructure in, millions of dollars spent, and they're 3 months.
We're talking about let's say Frank has built 10 of the exact same townhomes in a row and is just applying for the exact same thing he's already built many times in that community, yes, and it's 3 to 4 months. And so it's incredibly difficult environment for builders right now and buyers because you have to be very patient and you might be signing a contract with a lot of uncertainty over when the delivery will be. And
Well, it's
not much we can do about it till the county gets, I mean, it should take 2 weeks to get a building permit.
So it's back end, right? It's 3 to 4 months to get a building permit, and he was saying almost a month to get a CO. So when you combine those two numbers together, it's somewhere around 4 to 5 months of potential delay. And as Jerry knows, that's what 94% of new construction is these very costs, and people wonder why new construction is so expensive. There's a cost associated to that.
When the cost of construction is going up while you're waiting for a building permit, that is a problem.
That's bad news.
So so for this gentleman, I'll recommend this. On YouTube, the Charlottesville Association of Realtors has a channel. We had 5 developer home builders in a panel. It's about a 45-minute discussion, and we covered a lot of these topics. The developer of Belvedere said he was able to create 43 lots in 3 years in Belvedere, a pre-planned community that's been around for a decade. 43 lots in 3 years was all he was able to get through the system.
You got a lot of stuff coming in. You guys ready for this?
Yep.
Let's go.
First, we will acknowledge Stephanie Rhodes
Hey,
of
Stephanie.
the Interstate family. She says, Greg, go Who's?
Oh, Stephanie, I was getting ready to say this is the only termite company I've ever worked with in my career.
Neil,
And you will continue to
And I will
work.
continue even with
There you
the
go.
comment.
Neil Williamson's got one for Greg Slater, President Free Enterprise Forum.
Okay, it should be a hard one then.
This is a pretty good one. He's got 2 for you, actually. He says, Greg, did the reduction in density in Old Trail help or hurt regional affordability? And then the second question for you, were there no buyers for lower costs, more dense housing?
So second question first. So part of the problem was when we got into the higher density, the builders couldn't create housing people wanted on the lot sizes. They got too small. We ran out of room for a garage. Crozet and Old Trail, yes, experiences a pretty affluent buyer. And
So when was that rezoning done?
it's been over 5 years. It's been a while. I remember I sold homes in the first block. We realized we had a problem. We couldn't not sell the homes. And so the developer actually stopped that block and went back and rezoned a block that already had 4 or 5. I mean, redrew the lots, and we just troubled creating floor plans people wanted. So how does that impact affordability? You know, I could make an argument the fact that we've really never had any affordable housing through the proffers created in that community, because back when that was developed, the loopholes were too easy to pass through. But Old Trail's an expensive place to live. There's no question. And so I don't know that that lesser density, we were going to have an affordability problem in Crozet anyway, because it's too incredibly popular and
Sure.
too many people want to live there.
I mean, fantastic schools. That leads us to our next topic, redistricting.
So right now, if you drive back to Crozet Elementary, the expansion is under construction, and the conversation at the school board level is to how do we redistrict. And I got involved in a conversation this week because one of the topics that came up that upsets a lot of people was actually splitting Old Trail. So that part of Old Trail went to, and it doesn't make any sense to anybody who lives in Crozet, but then I realized they had bad math on how many kids would be produced there in the next 5
Well,
years.
that's the reason we brought this up, because they may be using old numbers.
That's right, and we think they were. So we were able to get the developer involved and get them the right information. For those of us that live in the community, we think it's more of a, Western Ridge goes from Brownsville to Crozet makes more sense than taking half of Old Trail and putting in those schools. But these are outside of our control, and hopefully they'll get all the information together and make good decisions. I've never understood, is it a counting kids issue, or is it a legit bus route issue? I don't know how they figure these things out. I don't always agree with the decisions they make.
This is why everybody at this table, we use this moniker, trusted advisors, right? You've been involved in this long enough that somebody reached out to you and you reached back and looked at it and helped with the math a little bit. Partly to answer Neil's question, it may have been approved 5 or 6 years ago, but the application process started a couple of years before that. I don't know the exact date off the top of my head, and Neil probably has that. What was happening 8, 9 years ago, right? We were still struggling to come out of the great time of unpleasantness, and the builders and the developers probably didn't see this coming and thought, hey, it'd be a good idea to cut back. I suspect some of that might have had to do with it to get it approved. I don't know if do you have
Well, if you're creating lots, look, one of the things that I like about the way Old Trail is being managed, that it's done block by block, and
Sure.
they are responding to the market. They're trying to look ahead and create what the market needs. And unfortunately, I'll give you a prime example. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. The market was strong. It wasn't going crazy like it is now. And they created lots that were single-family detached lots that were about $100,000. And that time, the math led us to thinking, you could put homes on there in the fours. So you'd have a single-family detached opportunity in the fours.
You might want to explain that, because that's something you and I know very well.
He totally should.
You should explain why, if it's a $100,000 lot, it equals 400.
There's a relationship between lot value and home value, and it becomes very relevant on the custom side. But the math is usually about 4 times the lot value is where the home should be. So
Somewhere 4 to 5 times, depending on.
that's right. And for example, these homes were like zoned so that you could put that apartment over the garage and have income, and that is how they addressed the affordable housing in Old Trail, like ultimately it was done in Belvedere. But what happened is demand overwhelmed. So if you go in there now, there's a bunch of 600 and up homes on these $100,000 lots. Fast forward to today, these lots are 175 and up. And so that opportunity to have $100,000 lots and barely created any affordable or more affordable options, per Neil's question, is the market did more damage than the
So what was
change
the
in zoning.
first half of the question? Because I think we missed that.
First half of the question from President of the Free Enterprise Forum: did the reduction in density in Old Trail help or hurt regional affordability?
Regionally, I don't know that it helped or hurt. I don't. That example I gave you is a prime example. They created lots at a price point that could have created a home in the right price range, and then the market rejected it and had.
So let's ask it a different way. If they didn't go from 24, 22, 2,300, right, back to 1,500 or 1,200, wherever they are at the moment, do you think that they would have been able to produce more cost-effective lots, therefore more cost-effective homes?
Well, I think the difference is not in the number of single-family lots. It's the difference is in more multifamily.
That's exactly right.
And so basically and the downzoning was done, for me, the reasons were, we had trouble selling what we could get on those smaller lots. But for the community, it was, if you really put 2,000 people here, how's the infrastructure going to handle it?
Well, I think that's what the conversation's going on right now with the CAC, right? And
you got the CAC watching here.
Which is we'll kind of get into that a little bit. But we were talking off air. I did some math over the weekend. Not exact numbers, but there's probably about 200 plus or minus residential units left to be built, different product types. Is that kind of matching your math a little bit?
I'm sorry, I probably could have had that better answer for you, but I think it's 200 to 300.
Yeah. But it's
either
not
side of 300.
But it's not thousands.
We're getting near we can see the finish line.
Yeah.
There's a parcel up front on 250. We don't know if that will get changed. I think it's zoned commercial right now, or one or the other. And there's been conversations over the years whether or not that gets changed, but it's not information that's coming out to the builders yet.
So it's just say between 200 to 300, and it's interesting because, as you know, because we both lived at Lake Monticello and did a lot of work out there, the subdivision will take a different feel. Right, it'll change a little bit once you get close to 100% build out. Do you agree or disagree with that? And what does it look like to you?
I believe in the vision of Crozet as the growth area that it is, and what's happening there. And I live in Old Trail. I love Old Trail. And a lot of people love Old Trail. I get it. About a third of the people I meet are repulsed by the concept of Old Trail. That's fine. It's not for everybody. But
why is that?
For lack of a better term, they want to be
Expensive?
they want to pee off their front porch, right? They want rural. They want less relationship with their neighbors. And I say that because it's been said three times in the last week. But
So they've actually said that, to pee off their front porch.
Yeah. So
Was that you, Keith?
Don't come by my house because I'm good with
well,
it.
it's a density. It's and I think sometimes people don't understand what can happen when you live in an environment like that.
Sure.
I'll give you a better example because there's different neighborhoods within Old Trail. Creekside, it's half-acre lots. right? I live on one of the smaller alley lots, new urbanism. And when my friends from Creekside come down to my patio, and within an hour there are 10 to 12 people on my patio, where it's a spontaneous happy hour, they're like, this is why we moved to Old Trail, and we don't even know our neighbors.
And nobody's peeing off the front porch.
Nobody's peeing off the front porch. But they're like, we've lived in our house for 5 years, and we don't know our neighbors really at all. It's because of the distance between the homes.
Sure.
Right? And the homes get closer together,
Sure.
and then the kids are playing together, and next thing you know, you're having a better social experience, if that's the social experience you want.
We have this comment in. So Neil's got a lot for you here. We do have members of the Crozet Community Advisory Committee on the feed.
Thank you.
Brian makes the comment, the reduction in density has certainly helped from an infrastructure standpoint around Crozet and Old Trail, which I think we can
It's a
agree
fair
with
statement.
that.
It's a fair statement. I mean,
Yeah.
people are right now what most people were concerned about, and I've known people that sold their homes when they found out 190 apartments were going in there. I would think we're at 60% occupancy. That thing's filling up, and it's filling up.
Of the apartment complex.
The apartment complex, and even the one on Jarman's Gap. But I watched, I've sold Belvedere from its inception to now. They built an apartment complex there. I don't feel any difference in the way traffic feels in Belvedere because of that apartment complex. I'm not sure I really feel it in Old Trail as an Old Trail resident. The main thing we feel in Crozet is related to those schools letting in and letting out. And you just need to know when those times are.
Is there room for the missing middle in Crozet? And for what it's worth, Crozet Master Plan goes before the supervisors on Wednesday.
Right, and so what happened most
you.
recently is the big argument over middle density and the Tabor Street corridor right there next to downtown, and they took it out in the final iteration of it.
The Planning Commission recommended to take it out.
Mm-hmm.
So to be clear, the Board of Supervisors is the one that makes that decision
Sure.
on Wednesday. So it may be in, it may not be in. We won't know until Wednesday.
You're right, thanks for clarifying that.
So this is one from Dan Pettit. Mustache Dan Pettit, I believe you, Kaufman, Spagoni, and crew were a part of the initial Old Trail launch.
Sure, so...
He's got a question for you, but...
Okay,
yeah, but
I can
am
explain.
I right on that?
Yes.
Yes. So when Galen Bates left Old Trail and a new developer took over the development, what changes did the new developer change over the initial plan? That's from Mustache Dan Pettit.
Well, if we're going to call it a downzoning, that was on them. I remember when they were hiring to replace Bates Development, they looked at a well-known local gentleman in the industry, and they decided to go out of state, and they hired somebody from Las Vegas who had very different perspective on things. And yeah, no, he's getting it done, and I don't know that the vision changed that much. They're responding to the market. What Old Trail wants over time is, yes, they want to try to create opportunities for all price points. That was the vision over time. But when townhomes start in the 400s and townhome lots are $100,000, it becomes very different. And ultimately, they need to sell lots, and they need to sell lots that builders want to buy, and so they can create product that buyers want to buy from the builders.
Here's an interesting question for you. Similarities with Old Trail's development and Lake Monticello's development, because the viewers know that you helped make a lot of Lake Monticello happen.
We did. So when I went in there, there was only 600 houses in 1987, which is an interesting point. On my bike ride today, on Sunday, across the dam, it was the same Sunday 34 years ago. I came back, and when I came down that day, there was people water skiing, not so much on Sunday. It was a little too cold, but 34 years ago, and it blew my mind coming down from New York. I was like, hold it, people are water skiing in the middle of October.
Jerry, do you know why Lake Monticello's gated?
To keep the damn Yankees out. Yeah, I know. And
keep them in.
Keep them in.
What's
Keep 'em in.
What's the difference? That's right. What's the difference between a
Once you get 'em
Yankee
in.
to damn Yankee?
Damn Yankee stays. Regular Yankee goes back.
Go ahead, Keith.
But yeah, so it's hard to compare the two, right? Yes, they're golf course communities, right? Yes, they are HOAs or planned communities.
Largest neighborhoods of the counties. Each, Crozet, Old Trail, Lake Monticello, Fluvanna.
Correct, and it's interesting. So Southwood's going to be almost on par with Old Trail. They're
That's
gonna
right.
They're going to be almost the same amount of
And-
units at Southwood.
And that's the most affordability we're going to see or have seen in a very long time.
Well, that was all due to Dan Rosenzweig and
Sure.
Habitat for Humanity.
It's fantastic to mix the market like that with all the opportunities. If you haven't had the presentation for somebody related to that project for the Realtors listing, you should get it.
Well, you need to do that because a lot of people don't know that there's at least 1,000, probably close to 1,400 units
Sure.
coming in all
Right
different
off of Fifth Street, that close to downtown.
Unbelievable.
And I've seen the presentation 3 times, and I can't recite what's going on there. There's too much going on.
But if you can give a shout out to Dan, because Dan
do it
and
right now.
Habitat, this is the largest project in the United States that Habitat ever put together.
It's exciting, and some
I'll get back
people
to
might
Lake Monticello.
some people might get tripped up over.
Squirrel.
Some people who are buying a house at fair market rate think they might get tripped up over being in a community where the Habitat homes are being with it. But we proved at Lockland Hill that is not a problem.
So the difference between Lake Monticello and Old Trail, it was just time, right? Lake Monticello was set up in 1968 and 1969. Just to put it in perspective, Fulvana County did not adopt an actual zoning code. So that thing was built without any zoning codes, without anything until 74, right? So it responded to the market, but its intent was to be a vacation community. Right? It was never intended to be what it is. And that's the reason I was asking the question. You've been through enough projects in your life here. What do you see Old Trail being? Do you see it being what it is and staying that way, or do you see it changing like Lake Monticello did?
Bruce Waddell needs to get recognition here.
Sure.
Multiple folks are mentioning Bruce Waddell in relation to Southwood.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for doing that. But Dan was what came up in my mind. Bruce was unbelievable. But that whole organization that put this together, that as the folks may know, we both sit on a land trust board. I sit on a regional housing partnership board. The Southwood is an exact example of bringing all the players to the table, all the pillars to the table that need to do this to make some magic happen, and it really did.
Well, to answer your question about what Old Trail is going to be, I think Old Trail is going to be what it is now,
Okay.
a small town, right? It's got a commercial component. It's got different neighborhoods around it that hit different price points, and the rest of the development there is mostly what we would call infill in the city of Charlottesville,
Sure.
right? Because it's the land closest to the commercial core. Now, there's a lot of commercial space left that is the
Within Old Trail.
Yes, and so that's undetermined who's going to want, in front of the lodge, they tried to put a hotel years ago, and the banks
remember it.
didn't like that, so it didn't go through. But there is a building being framed right now that will be a medical office building.
So I think the big difference, and you know Old Trail better than anybody, how much of Old Trail leaves Old Trail to go to work?
Ooh, that's a great question.
That is a good question.
We sat on my porch many a Thursday nights talking about
It's the
stuff like
second
this
cup of coffee.
over
Sure.
the years.
Good job.
But I used to look at even just like street by street because some parts of Old Trail I literally know everybody on both
Sure.
sides of the street.
Sure.
And for years, maybe
And they
5 years
recognize
ago,
you publicly?
yeah,
Well, they
25. I used to think about 25% of Old Trail were empty nesters. It's probably gone up. It kind of reminds me of what we used to talk about in Fluvanna County back in the day. The grandparents follow the grandkids. And there's a lot of kids in Old Trail that, sometimes I help both sets. Family buys, and the next thing you know, I'm helping both sets of grandparents get closer.
So you're seeing a lot of move up, a lot of maybe somebody starts at a townhome over in Old Trail, then moves up to a single family detached.
Absolutely. What's maybe a little more common, I sold a few of the homes I sold this year were people that were in Gray Rock or in Western Ridge
Got
in
it.
that lower price point, older home, and wanted to move in to Old Trail from within Crozet.
So Lake Monticello is just a little different because it really has this clear division, right? There's retirees, and then there's the folks that travel to work, and plus that's where the affordability is. Let's face it, at the moment anyway, on that end of it. But our number from Lake Monticello leaving there to go to work somplease else is huge.
Let me give you a crazy stat. I figured out recently talking
I
to a
see
seller.
all those numbers in front
So
of
you
me.
got. There's people who have made mega investments in building homes over $1 million in Old Trail, right?
What's the highest? That question's coming in. I don't mean to interrupt you here.
We're going to get there.
Highest one and the lowest one.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
I want to finish this thought.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, hold on.
I'm
So
sorry.
Jerry-
Go ahead,
Jerry,
Slater. I'm
Jerry,
sorry.
you want another cup of
I'm
coffee?
sorry. No, we're
Just
good.
so everyone knows,
It's blowing up. Greg is very popular
We'll just
here.
walk away and let Jerry finish.
I don't
the show.
drink coffee. I haven't had any today.
Okay.
I'll be fine.
You never drink coffee.
I've had like 3 cups in my life. So
Thank God, by the way.
so I had to do this analysis. So I have to help people understand the absorption of these homes over $1 million, because it wasn't a good return on investment for many years within Old Trail. But this change in the market and the drive of this outside money into our market during the pandemic changed everything. In 2017, there was one sale on Old Trail over $1 million. In 2018, there was one sale in Old Trail over $1 million. In 2019, there were 0. In 2020, there were 5, and currently there's 1 closed this year and 7 pending. The
In
high,
a million plus.
yeah. So now, not only do we have $1 million plus, we have multiple
Are
instances.
they new construction or resales?
Both.
Got it.
But the most of it right now is new construction. We've had 1 new construction closing at 1.5. We currently have 1 new construction under contract at over 1.5. But the bottom end of the market's pulled up into the mid. There are about a dozen.
But are they going to be cash transactions, you think, or a huge percentage of it? I know it's hard to tell, but
The ones I've been involved in, I sold a home for $900,000 in Old Trail this year, 100% VA.
really,
Yeah, I
Really?
sold a $1.3 million
Whoa,
home in
whoa,
Old Trail
whoa.
that they put down only 5%, and then I sold a home for $1 million cash.
so that's the importance of 100% VA. Explain to folks who don't quite understand why that's important from an appraisal perspective, right?
Well,
a little tougher, right?
The appraiser has different guidelines, but there was actually a little benefit I learned in that process. One of the problems we've had in the market is how long it takes to get an appraisal.
Sure.
The VA appraisers have a government timeline they have to get it done. So we actually got a pretty quick appraisal, and it appraised just fine. But that's a financial decision for somebody with a very high income and the ability not to put money down and buy their loan. They preferred to keep their money out of the house and make monthly payments.
So I just ran some quick numbers of new construction, single-family detached only, in Albemarle County only, right? So in 16 to 17, 1 year span, it was somewhere around 580 was the sales price, according to my data. This current year going back, it's up to about 650, 670. Does that match your numbers, or am I way off? This is all of Albemarle County. This is not just Old Trail.
It sounds fine to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Back to your question, there's a small number of homes in Old Trail that will trade around 200 to 250.
Townhomes?
Yeah, so some of the affordable lots, the proffered affordable lots, end up getting 1-bedroom, 2-house. They don't trade very much, but those will be in that price point. But mostly the townhomes now start in the 3s. Of course, the new stuff is in the 4s and 5s. And then it goes up from there. I'll give you another little interesting thing I followed. In 2017, 69% of the sales in Old Trail were new construction.
Oh, yeah.
In 2020, it dropped to 36%.
So,
But this year, it's back up to close to 50% because we have lost that. We don't have the resale inventory, and people are waiting longer to get these new homes.
So the lifespan of a subdivision, go back to Lake Monticello, right? When you have 4,500 lots and 600 in 1987, and now you have less than 10%, which, let's say 100 to 200 lots, even if you can find them, right? Eventually what's going to happen with the subdivision is the new construction is going to wane down, and then the resales are going to start picking back up. You want to talk a little bit about the life cycle, how that works?
And it's funny because in a big community, well, let's talk about Westlake, right? Westlake was 137 half-acre lots. They're the last half-acre lots to get developed, and there won't be many more. There are a few little pocket farms around Old Trail that are getting chopped up now as they become available. But you take a community like Westlake with a builder who's capable of building 100 to 150 homes a year, they actually are holding back values when the market's in its normal conditions and a normal rate of appreciation, because they need to get a certain number of homes to keep it going. So what you see happen
Put
is
the key in the front door.
now in this market, towards the end, those half-acre lots became so valuable and in demand. We saw them start to take advantage, and the construction costs started pushing these things up. But what really happens is when the builder's gone, then it becomes straight supply and demand. And so Forest Lakes is a prime example. When the builders left, properties appreciated faster than when the builders were there.
And Neil just corrected me. Thank you, Neil Williamson. Forest Lakes, according to your firm, Nest Realty, has 1,400 homes, more than 1,400 homes, which is the largest neighborhood in Albemarle County. That's according to Nest.
Could be.
What's Old Trail rooftops?
Yeah, so I don't know because it's so much mixed types of housing. I generally ask the Old Trail manager the question I want to know is how many full dues paying households there are, and I think we're around 600 to 700, closer to 700.
So 4,300 for you guys, right?
Well, it's
4,300 lots?
It's 4,500 lots. We're roughly around 4,300.
Okay.
Interesting HOA question. What is the largest HOA in the state of Virginia? Do you know what it is? I know you know what it is.
In the state of
In
Virginia?
the state of Virginia.
No idea.
Reston. Reston, Virginia is actually an HOA.
The whole thing.
Reston, Virginia. I learned
That's
that
a good tidbit.
I learned that from Michael Guthrie. I did not know that. It is an actual HOA.
I pulled the stats on how many detached resale listings there were in the area defined by Brownsville and Crozet Elementary School districts.
Well, that's interesting.
That's what we call Crozet. That's how I figure out Crozet.
Yeah,
if you go to one of those two schools, I call that Crozet because the zip codes are a little funky. There's 22901 in Crozet, right? But anyway, there's only 18.
Right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
18. That's a 1 month supply. And what it tells you more of the story of the market is the average days on market for those 18 listings is 83. The average days on market for the ones that are actually under contract is only 27, and the median is 5.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier about how the builders are trying to manage, I don't like to say they're managing the market, but they're trying to manage their business. They're starting to dial back a little bit sales. Are you experiencing that in certain subdivisions? They're not wanting to sell in front of how much they can honestly build and perform?
Say that again, because I have a lot of thoughts on that, but I want to hear that last part again.
So are you experiencing builders dialing back what they're bringing lots to the market, or they're bringing product to the market? In other words, they're reducing their volume of sales? Does that make sense? Did I clarify that a little bit?
Well, as a business plan, no, I don't see a lot of that.
Okay.
The first thing we see is when you look at the stats, it can be misleading. I mean, Ryan Homes has sold 100 less homes in our immediate area than they did last year. That's
And
because
why is that?
they ran out of lots. They have a little bit left at Riverwood, and then they've moved into Waynesboro and Orange. I don't track those counties. I'm not even sure where they are and where the MLSs start to blend. You take a builder like Stanley Martin. They came in. They tried it. Their sales plan is over 200 a year. In the first quarter, they sold 100, and they sold so fast they had to put a moratorium on sales for 2 months.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, they overloaded their system.
Yeah.
Southern Development Homes has a business plan, and they're grinding out that business plan. Craig actually went in the other direction in the last few years. He was generally about a 50-a-year home guy, and they've moved that up to 60 or 70, I think.
Well, that's huge for them. That's huge.
Yeah. They've grown
at
their
a set number for.
You have another generation of Craigs in there now that have been there for a few years. So, and what's most remarkable about when you get into the comparing these builders is the average sale price achieved by Craig is going up the most, right? They've pivoted to get a little further away from some of the other builders in there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff on the feed. So this is from the marketing director of the Charlottesville-Albemarle Transit Authority. His name is Kyle Irvin. Kyle, we love when you watch the program, dude. He's got 2 comments for you guys. What would you guys say to folks in Stanton who would like to move to Charlottesville or the county? What's currently the most affordable section in Albemarle County? Prices in Charlottesville make me cringe. He also adds, our current home was built in the early 1990s, and we love the old home aesthetic. What are the chances of finding an old home around $350K somewhere in Albemarle? So this is Charlottesville-Albemarle Transit Marketing Director.
Yeah, sure.
So that's a commute there for the gentleman.
Sure.
And he and his better half want to get closer to his job.
Yeah.
Well, I think you have to look for that price range. I think the first place you is look heading towards Scottsville, south. Maybe Earlysville, but Earlysville is really picking up in values.
I would say Earlysville, and it's going to be really hard to hit that. And there's internet issues.
That's the next problem: internet and
at the
cell
moment.
coverage issues. We need that broadband for sure.
I'm going to contradict you a little bit. I think if he's going to move to Scottsville area, which is lovely, they've got some projects coming out, it's a great opportunity. I'm not so sure his commute gets any better.
Well, I didn't really take the commute part into consideration. I was just trying to think of places where your commute's going to get longer, obviously.
It seems like that was the driving point of the question, to do that. I'll tell you.
You're going to push him to the lake.
Actually, I'm not. I'm going to push him the age of the home is just going to be difficult because you're looking for an existing established neighborhood. That price point's going to go right now, and it's going to try to get into what I wanted to talk to you about, how new construction is going to be projected to increase over the next several years and what impact that might have in the market. I think if I was sitting down having a conversation with the first gentleman's first name?
Kyle.
With Kyle.
Kyle Irvin.
I'd probably look at Southwood. Southwood's going to be at that price point, and the reason it's going to be at that price point is because the lot costs are considerably less, and that's where this 4-to-1 ratio comes in. But based on the
that is brilliant advice. I can't believe I didn't think of it, to be honest with you. I mean, that
hold it. Do you want to say that one more time? Is Yona
He
watching?
He likes to hear that. That's correct. He likes to hear that. Daniel
but
Pettit's got
that's
some-
exactly why Southwood is there.
Look at him. He's getting.
No, I'm excited about that. I'd like to hear
Look.
if this gentleman
And
goes there
by
and
the way,
checks it
I
out.
don't represent Southern Development, but
Kyle, do you know of Southwood? Do you know of
we'll
Southwood?
send him a link. We'll send him a link.
Yeah, please. So
You can get single-family detached homes, according to Frank Bailiff and Southern Development. They're clearing out the streets. The streets are paved. They're starting their sales. You might want to chime in from here on.
Well, and the 350 price point with Southern, that will be a townhome. Their homes, they do have prices with a 4 in front of every single family detached.
I know that, but if you're literally on Fifth Street and his commute time is substantially
he's
reduced.
going to save the money on
Oh,
travel.
sure.
And particularly what?
And wear and tear.
325 this morning when I filled up at the lake.
325.
325.
So you
It was
brought up.
315 yesterday. Went up to 325.
So Kyle Irvin said no idea about Southwood. Southwood is very close to the Wegmans. That's a good landmark for everybody. It's across from Oak Hill Farm and Redfields, across from Mosby Mountain,
It's adjacent to Biscuit Run on that
There you
side
go.
of Fifth Street.
adjacent to
There you
Biscuit
go.
Run.
So the easiest way to get more information now is Southern Development of Homes has a finished home in Belmont Point, which is right off a quarry off of Monticello, right? You're leaving, you're going down the hill on your right before you get to the interstate. You turn right on Quarry and Stonehenge Avenue Extended. There is a model home there, and that's where they're selling Southwood at. And that's the easiest way to get the high-level overview of what's going on.
there you go.
To go a little bit more detail in that, there's
Sold a house right here.
There's the first section that's been released, which Frank is part of, PH is part of, Atlantic Builders.
Atlantic Builders is building in there,
Builders is
yeah.
part of it. But when you take a look at the map, there's this rezoning they're going through to fill out the rest of the 1,000+ units. I actually think it's going to exceed as far as residential units, as far as doors, front doors. I think it's going to exceed Forest Lakes. I think.
Plus 1,400.
I believe once you calculate in the apartments as residential units, now the project this was approved next to Forest Lakes may change that math a little bit, right? But yeah, it'll be awfully close,
You're getting, so my neck of the woods, 3 people, 1 I know, 2 I don't, hope to meet you, are asking updates on Breezy Hill.
Well, it's
I
been
think
approved.
It
Yeah.
was approved?
It's approved.
It's improved with reduced density.
Yeah, somewhere around 80 units.
Yeah, that's right, reduced density.
Yeah, it's been approved. It passed through. That was
I've known about that so long, I stopped following up on it.
Yeah,
I
so-
stood on that property probably in 2010.
Yeah, so the developer went in and just reduced the density, and it ultimately was approved. So it's going to be, if I remember the presentation correctly, most of it's going to be single-family detached, probably considerably higher than the numbers we're talking about right now.
Yes.
More coming in here. So Susan Stewart is coming up now, and Liberty Homes.
Yep.
So this comment comes in. It's amazing how the viewers are so knowledgeable. That's why you have to be literally on your A game every time you get here. So Susan Stewart had mentioned that Liberty Homes has attempted to buy most of the existing lots at Lake Monticello. I wonder how many homes Liberty sells a year. Can you please bring this up with the panel?
So that's
They're probably in the top 4 builders. I don't track it that much because it's so much more in the rural areas, but
well, they're number one. Well, if that's Susan Stewart knows. So
Yeah.
No, that's not her talking. That's a viewer from a previous show who watched when Susan Stewart came up, which was 2 weeks ago.
that's exactly right.
they build a lot
Think
of
about
homes.
that.
Yeah, I mean, poof.
Think about that.
That's
Yeah.
another recommendation for the gentleman looking for something, though, in that 350 range.
Correct, but he's at Lake Monticello, which is, Lake Monticello, Albemarle, that's where I live. It's a 15, 20-minute drive.
What is the Liberty's guy's name?
Sean Tuttle.
Yes.
So that's a great comment, great feed. Thank you, Jerry, for sharing that. They are building. They are probably one of the only builders that are building at the affordable price point. I will tell you, we are working on a sale over there at Lake Monticello, new construction that has a 3 in it that's awfully close to a 4 for new construction for Liberty Homes at Lake Monticello.
Two-story home?
Excuse me?
Two-story home?
Actually, single level, 2-car garage.
Yeah, so the smaller two
basement.
stories is going to be your most affordable
Yeah.
way to build, right? If people don't understand, the more foundation and more square footage you have on the first floor, the more expensive the home is to
The
build.
problem with Liberty, not the problem, that's a wrong choice of words. The struggle that Liberty's going to have, it's going to run out of inventory, right?
Yes.
Liberty does not create inventory, it buys inventory.
True.
Right? And lot inventory is what we're talking about. So eventually they're going to hit their ceiling. And I believe if Susan chimed in on that meeting, at that last show,
I'll tag her right now.
they have a couple of substantial amount of lots that they're dripping into the market to go ahead and.
Carter Lancaster says, to the comment that just came in about Liberty Homes, check out their model home over there in
250.
Keswick in 250.
Is it still there on the corner of
Oh,
250
yeah.
and Black Cat Road?
It's
That's
still
exactly
there.
right, yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting the way they model. They have that model, and they have multiple agents from different brokerages representing. Liberty's. If you should Google it, they are a pretty substantial size company from Richmond all the way over to here. But at the moment in Fluvanna County, around Lake Monticello, they're building at this quote unquote, whatever we want to call it, affordable price point as far as new construction goes. And that's other than the land trust, there's not too many folks building at that particular price point. Affordable housing at some point.
Let's go. That question's coming up. I mean, he asked, what's the most affordable? I mean, you guys have touched on this with Southwood. Besides Southwood, folks are asking, what's the entry price point in Albemarle?
Entry price point in Albemarle?
New construction?
Single-family detached.
Probably Riverwood in the 4s with Ryan.
Are they not sold out? I have not.
There's still something going on there. I can't tell. They
But not
kind
a
of
lot.
pull it off and put it back on the MLS.
Yeah, so Riverwood, so give an orientation for folks who may not know.
29 North, heading up towards the Research Park, across
So-
the street on the left by the 7-Eleven in front of it.
That's exactly right. So it's over on the other side of Target, right? On the east side of.
I thought they would have been done by now, but last week I noticed MLS activity with their proposed listings.
But it's not a huge number, right?
It should not be a huge number.
So
But then after that is going to be Southwood.
it's going to be so. Let's go back to the question that I was trying to ask. What new construction over the course of the couple of years? So I know of a few projects, you know of a few projects from today, let's say 24, 36, 48 months, because I can't believe this. Everything I'm reading, they're starting to project our industry out that far. I've never in 30 some odd years ever seen that happen. Nobody's ever said, well, I think 23 is
Doesn't
going
that
to be
scare
like,
the hell out of you? It is what it is.
maybe
Who's
they're getting,
Like Young?
Lar and Young
Okay.
and all these PhDs, not Bert and Ernie.
Well, every year we see a forecast from the
I needed
NAHB
to get to that.
economic guy, right, with the Blue Ridge Home Builders,
Sure.
and then you have, I don't know that they're always getting it right.
Well, they don't. What is it?
How can you project that far out and get it right every time?
What is it? There's lies, damn lies, and statistics,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we're in the field, and the reality of it is there's more buyers than sellers.
Correct.
As long as the interest rates does not go up to double of where they are now, the pool of buyers is huge. The inventory pool is very shallow.
I'm not even
I'll tell you-
convinced. Go ahead.
I watch the quick absorption rate of properties on a month-over-month basis, and so the hard part about comparing with 20.
So explain what a quick absorption rate is, because some folks may not know what that is.
So I look at homes over a 30-day period, and I figure out how many of them sold in a week or less.
That's exactly right.
Right? It means, and the only reason in many cases it takes a week is because we had to learn as realtors to slow down the front end of the process, because our business model originally was mostly predicated on finding the fastest buyer, right? And we had to change it to finding the best buyer when everybody was fast. So we hold up showings for 2 or 3 days, and then we give everybody 48 hours to get their offers in, and that's how you find the best buyer.
So that's interesting because you really have to back out 3 or 4 days out of that 7.
Right. In most cases, if it's sold in 6 days, it probably had an offer on the first day.
That's exactly
But
right.
they just sat on it and made people slow
Well, it
down.
just takes time for negotiations and
And the other thing, I think why realtors did that is it became very difficult to be a buyer's agent in this craziness of this last year, because at any point in time, a listing could hit the market and you have to figure out how to rearrange your life in the context of your client's life to go see the house that day and decide how much you were going to offer for it that night. And that wasn't healthy for anybody.
How many deals do you do both sides?
I don't offer single agent, dual agency. And my advice to any buyer listing right now
It's
is
not to do that.
absolutely not. But I also understand
And explain to them why.
well, nobody's getting represented.
That's exactly right.
Because the core part of what I do is stripped away in single agent, dual agency. I give unfiltered advice. I give negotiating advice. I give long-term opinion. Fair market value today. How's it going to perform against the market in the future?
And if you do dual representation,
You can't do
everything
that.
you said to Jerry, now you need to say to me.
Yeah,
Right?
or I don't say anything to anybody. I
That's
say,
right.
how much would you like to offer on the house?
Yeah.
You just
Would
play
you like
close
to? Would
the
you like to
vest.
take that amount?
Right. You play close to
We
the
don't
vest.
do.
But the point I was trying to make was, look, over the years, and I've tried to get Carr to follow this, is to figure out the percentage of transactions on our market realtors are involved in, right? When we redid the MLS, I actually caused the unrepresented buyer, unrepresented seller choices in the MLS because we were getting it wrong with no agent, non-MLS agent. So we made it easier. So we should track that. And as an association, I think we should work together to drive more people to using realtors. But right now,
That's kinda what we're trying to do here,
I've
bro.
never seen a lower percentage of unrepresented buyers in the market because you will get beat.
So you do
The agent, when you're going to buy a home without it, and you've got more than one offer, and there are agents involved, the agents are better now with all this practice of going in there, and if the buyer's agent has a relationship with the listing agent,
There you go.
Think about it, Keith. You're the listing agent, and 5 offers come, and there's 5 different agents, and they're all the same price. Does it matter which agent at all in that conversation you might end up working with?
Oh, yeah, I'm never going to say that publicly.
But if you're taking it, you're going to look at how they're paying for the home.
I generally look for Greg Slater and go, nope, and then go to the
No,
next
you
one.
don't.
Maybe that's the difference. But if they don't have an
If you-
agent, and you have to realize someone's got to manage the other side of the
Two things,
transaction.
Mr. Slater. I'm on the board. But, who matters? Who matters?
It does matter, and I'm
Who
not talking
matters?
about making that decision. I'm talking about the advice I'm giving my client.
Yeah. Who matters?
Some people write better offers than others that
Who
make them
matters?
rise to the top of the pile.
Who matters? So let's change subjects.
All right.
No, go ahead.
Where were we going before we got down that road?
Affordable housing is where we were at.
I don't know, Ernie.
Well-
I have no idea. So those who don't know, we call
They
each-
know each other well, can't you tell? Yeah.
So look, we talk about inventory all the time. So I'm trying to get some good information out, right? We talk about lack of inventory going on. One of the conversations we constantly have is new construction will help with that inventory because as more units come on, the resales inventory will help come up a little bit. But I know back of the napkin in the next couple of years, 2 to 4 years coming up, how many new lots do you see?
Just got asked here. So that tag team that question with this back of the napkin. And I'm going to paraphrase this. In the next 12 months, how many new construction rooftops are coming in the market in Albemarle County?
So I'm asking lots.
Lots and rooftops.
Yeah, so it's a little different, but lots are longer to bring to the market than rooftops. You want to tackle it, then I'll jump in on the lot side.
I'll give you an idea. So I ran, this is not for a 12-month period, this is for a 3-quarter period. I ran the year-to-date numbers, Q3 to compare. In 2018, for Albemarle County, we wrote 366 new home contracts. That's detached and attached. In 2019, we wrote 386 through Q3. That was the top. In 2020, we wrote...
This is only Albemarle County.
This is only Albemarle County because we're 60 or 70% of the new construction in the
You
area.
are.
And so, yeah, there's stuff going around on the fringe. But think about this.
See, I see that. That's what I want to get into because I think that number's going to change
Of course.
substantially.
2019, 386. And we started going backwards. 2020, 337. This year, 307. And there's going to be constriction on new home sales for a lot of the reasons we just talked. You can't predict how many lots we're going to have to build on the next 12 months because these guys can't get through Albemarle County to get the lots approved.
Yeah.
We know how many are approved. We don't know when they're going to hit the market.
And pinch supply chains and the red tape.
The red tape of getting a building permit is a challenge. The cost of construction is
Can't
a
get
challenge.
subs. Cost
The
of
labor
goods.
supply. The parade of homes I sat in this weekend didn't have a garage door.
So interesting stat. I was listening.
That's because they couldn't get it in?
Yeah.
Wow. And it's still sold.
They probably ordered it 4 months ago.
There you go.
Interesting stat. I was listening to this over the weekend on NPR. This is the first time that the median person going through school for a BA, somebody who went through a trade school or a 2-year school, actually is making more money coming out of
You share that on your Facebook page.
Yeah, correct. So they're actually making more money. So it's starting to change a little bit, or whatever. And I'm actually trying to work on the show, bringing Ridge Schuyler in to talk a little bit about that. Look, I think everybody needs to be super patient. I'm talking lot inventory. We're talking permits and building. You know, Fluvanna County, the drive till you fly, or fly till you qualify, that kind of stuff is happening. But you're starting to see these peripheral counties, density, new lots coming on. I know Fluvanna County, because it's went through the rezoning, it's all public information. There's 325 lots coming up, or residential units, 125 of them are apartments, so there's 200 single-family detached. There's a couple of projects on going through the rezoning process, and there's multiple projects going through the process around here. So we could conceivably, in a few years, have thousands of units. Southwood in itself, right, is going to be another 1,000 or so on top
If we
of
could
what-
just get them all out faster.
Well, this comment came in, and this is very applicable to what we just talked about. This is from Dan. He said, first of all, in 27 years of business, he's done one dual representation.
There you go,
And then
Dan.
the second comment, he says, a lot of people cannot wait for new construction and have to look at the resale market.
Sure.
Because rentals are so high in price, and they need somewhere to live.
Yeah, I mean, it's 100%.
Here's what we don't know and what we have to follow, and that's why I run these stats. Right now, at the end of September, compared to last year in Albemarle County, we listed within 3% of the same number of resales as last year. 1,534 versus 1,587. So that supply is relatively flat. Now, it happened in different times of the year because of the pandemic,
Sure.
and so when you compare the months, but
Overall.
my prediction is by the end of this year, we'll probably end up a little behind
I agree.
because it's slowing down right now.
And to add to that stat, UVA has already announced they're hiring more people than ever. They're going to admit more students than ever. You got that 323 building that we talked about on last week, 49,000 square feet of Class A office space. Pritzloff and Stone are just rented. And that company is bringing employees in from outside the area to work at that 49,000 square foot office space. These guys are getting paid upper fives, six figures, and need a place to live. Those are just a couple examples.
That's just a small part of it.
That's
of what's happening downtown, you know, with the Class A space.
I mean, consider Code.
Right.
Consider Chris Henry at Dairy Central.
And the Apex building.
Apex building. Yeah.
So you have a relatively predictable number of resale inventory, right? And so if we look, and we're still 230 contracts ahead. Now, a lot of that went new construction.
But 2020, right? You and I talk about this all the time, right? 2020, you just need to kind of put it on the side and more looking at and maybe I misheard you. Were you comparing them to like 18 and 19 numbers? Or you
No,
comparing-
I have done a little comparison to 2019. We're not making as many resale listings as we were in 2019
Yeah,
either.
thank you. That was kind of. the
And
question.
so people, the market's perpetuating itself. There are plenty of people who want to move up or move across or move down, but they can't find what they want, so they don't list their home.
Yeah.
So in your business, right, on the buyer side, what are you seeing folks coming from the outside in, or excuse me, from outside in, or are they moving up internally?
It's probably equal in my world. I try to handle about 12 listings and 12 buyers a year, right? Because I have two builder relationships. I'm not a one-size-fits-all realtor, and so it's a very small snapshot.
Yeah, but in
but,
your
I, but,
world-
I'm, but when you take the buyers for my listings as well, yeah, this year was heavy on people coming in.
From Northern Virginia?
And the challenge with the people coming in is, while we talk about how the lack of affordability in our market, in many cases we look inexpensive.
Oh, of
Depending
course.
on where they're coming from.
We talk about this all the time.
And
The
those,
Northern Virginia
and those,
buyer.
and those folks are the
Or
ones.
New York.
Those are the ones that when you have 4 offers and they're getting to 10 or 15% above list price, it's usually somebody from out of the market.
Yeah, so our volume is a little bit higher than that on both sides, and as far as transactions go,
Yeah.
on that end of it. But we're seeing quite a few. It's either people coming in or people going out. We don't see a lot of internal lateral moves on that end of it. I think a lot of that has to do with the average folks are staying in home are closer to 10 instead of 5 years. That seems to be the trend going on.
Carter's asking, how's the Northern Virginia buyer impacting comps and prices in the area? So you just answered that. Brief, you kind of answered it right there.
Yeah. So I had a Northern Virginia buyer who was an attorney in Alexandria who sold his $900,000, 1,200 square foot, whatever it was. It would have been $300,000 here, and he bought a 6,000 square foot top of the line peak resale on one of the best lots in Old Trail for 1,275, and you know, and he's keeping his job. He's working from Crozet, and he's keeping his salary in Alexandria.
Those were my neighbors across the street. They sold a townhome in Georgetown for a little over $1.2 million. It was under 1,200 square feet. Came with a bag of cash and bought a 5,000 plus square foot home on 0.8 and had a huge delta left.
So that's an
But
interesting.
keeping their job and
Keeping their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, working from the basement on an ISP.
That's what the pandemic. We're a Zoom town.
That's his term.
Or Zoom town.
How about co-primary houses?
We're Zoom
Because
town.
interest rates have been 4% or lower for over.
Explain co-primary houses.
Well, interest rates have been 4% or lower
Sure.
for over a decade.
yeah.
And what happens is you buy a second home that was just going to be a second home or maybe even an Airbnb, but you end up living in them both half and you keep them both. And so you realize you can go spend more time in your vacation home and work.
Dude, you're very good in this setting. I say this to you every single time you come on the show. He is very good in this setting.
And
What setting is? No one's listening, are they?
It's very well. You got some media folks watching and your peers watching right now.
I thought that was just
Neil
a-
Williamson is peppering you with questions here.
Neil, let's go to lunch, buddy.
So
I have questions for you too.
So let's ask the question, right? You and I have been around this long enough, and you've been on both sides of a up and down market. You know, we're a little over 3% right now on a 30-year fix. Everybody I'm reading says probably by the end of next year we'll be close to 4, if not over 4. Is that going to loosen up inventory? What kind of impacts is that going to have in your opinion?
Yeah, I wish I knew.
Okay.
This is the no, because people want to know if they're the hardest thing to do right now is represent a buyer who has to decide about maybe buying something they don't want, maybe getting on that long road to new construction, or just riding out their rental and watching. I have multiple clients who have photographed their home so that when we find the home they want, we can just slap it on the market and
Sure.
try to go.
Sure.
And I have to have them be prepared to not have to sell that home, right? Interesting financial products coming to help ease the market in that regard. Fulton Mortgage, for example, allows you to, if you can recast the loan as many times as you want for $250.
Yeah, you should tag Julia Roberts because I actually spoke to her this morning.
You ever heard of
right
that?
now.
You don't have to refinance. In the life of the loan,
Yep.
and they're doing it on the jumbos too, for a $250
The jumbos
fee,
went up.
you can put in more money and lower your payment. They'll recast the payments.
But I've never heard of that in over 3 decades.
I heard of it yesterday.
Right, so that's an added conversation, right? Normally, the conversation we have with particularly new first-time home buyers, you know, buy one less of these, right, and pay down your principal. So you're now saying you can recast it. Is that on? Are they
They're keeping all these loans.
got it? So that's an important part to get out. That so folks don't get misunderstood.
Well, this was a jumbo loan too. So, but back to your question about predicting the future, this is the way I look at it. What we can't measure and that I try to keep a feel for based on that quick absorption. Quick absorption is pin-up demand.
Yep.
And so if you watch, every time I list something, I figure out how many views on Zillow it gets in the first week versus how many showings it gets versus how many offers. And in sometime around March, it went off the charts. Sure. March, April, May, June. But since then, it's starting to pull back. The Zillow...
So to normal, you think? Or...
The Zillow views are the ratio of in-person showings to Zillow showings is declining. You still have a lot of looky-loos that look at Zillow as a hobby or a fantasy.
I have it in my briefcase. I didn't take it out, which is the NARS 2021 generational stats, right? And somewhere around 97% of the millennials always start on this.
Yeah, think about it. If you get 1,000, and then the relationship, I look at the relationship of saves versus views. So if you get 1,000 views and 25 saves, 5 showings, but still get 2 offers, that's serious. That's 2 buyers of pin-up. That's 5 buyers of pin-up demand and 2 you made a match with. So anytime you can make a match with more than one person that's waiting for that home to come on the market is when you're going to see these.
You seen multiple offers go down in your area?
Yes.
Just had one.
Well, we sold the parade home with them. I literally had the contract written at 3 p.m. yesterday, and someone at 3:30 walked in and beat them.
But so that's 2, right? It was not too long ago. That would have been 5 or 6, right? So is it?
Maybe. Yeah. It
But we're
depends
not
on the
talking-
price point.
That's what I was just going to say.
We're at a $900,000 home at $300 a square foot.
Right. How many people can afford that?
You know, if we would have had this
With no basement.
if we would have had
And no garage door.
And no garage door.
Yeah.
Sorry.
if we would have had this conversation 2 years ago, I would have said you're nuts. But you know, as we said earlier, new construction, if it doesn't have an 8 or a 9, that's kind of entry level nowadays in Albemarle County, single family detached with an 8 or 9, and that just blows my mind as somebody who's been here for decades. You know, I remember when it was a couple of hundred, right? It was not too long ago, 200-300.
Heaven forbid the rate of listings is still declining. Next year, if we don't list at least as many of homes as we listed this year, the problem will get worse.
Don't we think the rate of listings will decline next year?
Who knows? I mean, people are being
But why
dragged
is
in.
that- for those who don't know, why is that so important?
I mean, it's just supply and demand.
Why is
That's
that
right.
important?
There's nothing to sell. I mean, you
Yeah.
have buyers on the sideline that are waiting for these things to hit the market, and they go jump at them. But here's the other question: how many buyers gave up this year and are waiting to dive back into the market next year?
A ton.
Yeah, but we don't know how many. And so that's why I look at the things the way I
That's
look
why
at,
this
and
rate
that's
of
why
listing
I measure the
is
activity
important.
on every listing when it hits. And when I list a home, I try to predict how aggressive you can be with the price based on how much pin-up demand I think there is in that location and that price point.
And we haven't even considered the UVA employee increase, the student increase, Apex Code 323. I mean, we haven't considered any of this.
But Jerry, you also haven't considered when does pricing affordability slow down the buyers because
Well, that's what Neil was trying to ask. I think.
I don't think okay, maybe you guys are the pros. I just learn from you guys.
there's a limit to what people can pay in their
Sure.
budgets, and when they can't get the amount of house they want, they have to make hard decisions.
I agree with that unless the buyer is an out-of-market buyer that is coming from a Nova, a Georgetown, a DC, and does not get the sticker shock.
But there's
Because you got 5,000 square feet versus 1,200.
Yeah, but I don't know what percentage of our sales are sold to people from Northern Virginia.
I wish we knew that.
Well, it's hard to know, but that ties into his question. Interest rates are
That's exactly
3% caused this unhealthy market.
Sure.
If they lived at 4 and 4.5%, it would make people because they're making car payment decisions now.
Most people buy a home by what their monthly payment is. Interest rates impact that, tax rates impact that, insurance impact that, but most people buy based on that. Look, that's the reason why I constantly use this pool reference, right? You know, the buyer pool is so deep. You know, if interest rates go up or some other things happen, that pool just gets a little shallower, but the pool is still pretty deep, and the inventory is so shallow.
That's
We've
right.
got to get those balance to happen.
Well-
I feel we're getting closer to balance, but
I think the spring market will be a melee next year.
You really do?
Pain. But think about this, because it made me think of when you're talking about it. Think about how many times you met someone that said their budget is 500. They couldn't find what they wanted.
And they went up.
600.
Yeah.
When interest rates go up enough where they bump their head
Sure.
on what they qualify for, and you take people who this year would have been shopping in the 500s because interest rates are 3%, and then they end up in 4%, 400s because interest rates are 5%. That's what's going to
So
show
I'd have
us.
to grab those stats from my briefcase over there or my backpack over there because who carries a briefcase anymore? Sorry.
I thought he had a fanny pack.
I just
I always had a backpack.
I just dated myself. One of the things that they've been tracking is, and Jerry and I talk about this all the time, and the COVID kind of helped us a little bit. The millennial is saving a ton of money. So even if interest rates go up a little bit,
And he's saying they're saving a ton of money, no credit card debt, they quarantine, they spend 14 months at home instead of going to happy hour, restaurants, shopping,
100%.
vacation.
but
personal
the millennial, just from a statistical thing, is so much more frugal with his cash than maybe my age was.
Well, it's because we saw what our parents went through in
That's
08,
exactly
09, and 2010.
Literally had this very conversation with my youngest daughter who flew in from Seattle for a wedding on that stuff. And he's a doc, she's a teacher out in Seattle. That's what they're doing. They've reduced their expenditures, so they're building their cash up so they can put a down payment. And their thinking, and was no coaching on my end, their thinking is okay, interest rates are going to go up by the time I've raised enough cash. This cash will offset that so my monthly payment hits a certain number. Now, they're also in Seattle, which is insane.
Right.
So, that's a whole different kettle of fish. But that's what they're doing. They're saving cash. That's part of why, they're hitting the market a little bit later than what you and I may have.
Well,
hit the market.
this is a great conversation to display what realtors can do because a lot of what we do is coach.
That's exactly right.
And when you have the portfolio of experience and points of view on the market through many years, while you don't have, nobody can predict the future. But I'm pretty good at listening to everything that's important to you and putting a context around it that's relevant from my portfolio of experience. So I can at least help you make a better decision.
Sure.
I don't make decisions for my clients. I give advice and they make decisions.
We educate.
That's true.
Source of the source.
So looks
Sometimes
like
it's psychological.
I know Jerry has a show coming up, and I'm looking at the first time I looked at the clock. We're eating up.
Yeah.
on the
How
time.
about we close with this one? From Neil. From Virginia Realtors, the housing industry provided a major boost to Virginia's economy during the pandemic. Residential real estate contributed nearly $52 billion to the state's economy in 2020. Virginia Realtors has published a new study conducted in partnership with George Mason University, quantifying the economic impacts of Virginia's housing industry and demonstrating the vital role the housing sector played during the COVID-19 pandemic and economic recession. It's a good way to close right there, giving you guys some props and the impact that you have. And now you usually come in with the...
Dr. Lisa Steravant last year, I believe, because we haven't talked to her this year so far. It was second GDP in the state. Our industry, everything we do, is next to government.
It's always been super important.
I've been writing the CAC note down several times during this conversation. We didn't get to it.
CCAC.
Excuse me?
CCAC.
I apologize. I missed an extra C there.
Crozet Community Advisory Committee.
Thank you, gentlemen, for keeping me straight. I'm going to ask you to come back because as a realtor, as a resident, let's see, we'll get through this week and see what kind of conversations happen at the board level. I'd love to have your reaction.
Okay, but I'll recommend the Crozet Gazette this month. There are two spectacular articles on exactly what were the Planning Commission decisions about the master plan, and we didn't get to the fact that they're building what did I say? 47,000. The Planning Commission has pushed forward a plan that includes a 47 square foot aquatic center and
47,000.
what did I say?
47 square feet.
And Crozet Park,
47,000 in Crozet Park. Anyway,
Yeah.
there's a big article about how that conversation went in there.
Also,
too.
pickleball.
Pickleball.
Crozet Park.
Pickleball.
I'm a huge fan of pickleball. I love
Yeah,
pickleball.
who isn't?
I love pickleball.
Last minute, I asked you to come in on
Yeah, dude, you
Friday.
crushed
Thank
it,
you for
dude.
doing this. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I hadn't seen you guys in a while.
Well, we will keep you on a regular.
He's the
basis.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, give him some Crozet Creamery props before we
Oh,
go.
No, because I want more of the ice cream for myself.
This is the tip I'll give you. Follow us on social media and watch for these pumpkin pies pre-order for Thanksgiving. Ice cream pumpkin pie.
You sold me.
good
I'm
tip.
in.
It's pretty good. I got to sample it.
Oh, did you really?
The test,
You didn't
the
share with
the
us? You didn't bring any
prototypical.
He
in?
one.
hooked us up with some passes.
No, normally he brings some ice cream in. So,
Yeah, I was rushing around on
rushing
Monday
around
morning.
this morning.
Keith Smith, Greg Slater, Jerry Miller, Judah Wickower. This is Real Talk presented by...
Closure Title and Ally Property Management and Interstate Service Company. And I'm really looking forward to the Monday conversation.
And Mr. Wells in the house. Mr. Wells, second generation, and Greg Wells, third generation, on Monday at 10:15. Thank you for joining us. If we didn't get to your comments or questions, we apologize. We have gone considerably over time.
It's only supposed to be 45 minutes, so
I know
thank
that.
you.
I know
Thank
that
you.
very well.
Thank you.
We had fun. You guys, I Love CVille show in 55 minutes. You guys have a good morning. Take care. Greg Slater.
Yeah, I looked down too and was like, whoa.
Fine.